Welcome to episode 142 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Just Send It for Posterity edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm with my co-host, Joshua Fine. Man, we had quite a finish at the Xfinity 500. We had one that was also quite crazy the day before at Martinsville, and not so much at Mexico, including how the penalty or the breach that was not essentially because they bought too many meals or something. It's funny how Red Bull gets away with shit, but yeah, quite an interesting weekend at Martinsville, leading into the final race of the 2022 season for NASCAR. There, Josh.
Yeah, definitely. Probably one of the all-time finishes ever in NASCAR and maybe even racing, and it's got everybody talking. The Ross Chastain pulling the video game move, riding the wall in turn 3 and 4. Never would have expected it, and I mean, in real time, I couldn't even believe what was happening, and all I could do was laugh when it finally was over. And yeah, just it's the move that I've probably made a few times in PlayStation on back in the day in NASCAR Thunder 2004 and all those games, Chase for the Cup 2005, all those console games. Not so much on iRacing, but just an incredible move, and it's got everybody talking and people that normally talk about NASCAR. I mean, the fact matter is it's number one or last night on SportsCenter's top 10 plays. When was the last time you seen a NASCAR highlight on the top 10 plays in SportsCenter? Probably never, and probably not even since like the 90s or something, I bet. But just it's the move that's got everybody talking, and honestly, probably made me a Ross Chastain fan right there if I wasn't already one, and probably made him a lot of fans there too. So just an incredible move, and yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, of course, Ty Gibbs, public enemy number one going into the championship round for the Xfinity Series. So yeah, just a really polarizing, exciting weekend of racing that we saw at Martinsville and even at Mexico.
Yeah, I mean Mexico was definitely a bore fest, but then that's what that track is. It's never really been the greatest for racing, no matter where it's been on the calendar. These days, it's even worse. They've taken away a lot of where the challenges were by making it smooth. They've kind of, and adding tons of runoff, they've kind of made it a very benign racetrack. But a track that isn't benign is Martinsville, albeit for the first maybe 350 or so laps of the race, it was pretty benign. Um, Ross Chastain going full send and to four, shifting it into fifth gear and saying God bless and going and riding the wall like he was Tony Hawk on a skateboard, and making it work is one of the craziest things I've ever seen in 30 31 years of watching motorsports. We'll definitely get into that. We'll get into who advances. Christopher Bell gets a second walk-off win in a round for the second round in a row, and gets into the final four. Um, we'll talk about the guys who are in the final four for the drivers. We'll also get into the final four for the owners, because there is a deviation there. We'll get into the guys that some of the people that had issues or had chances but couldn't make it happen. Of course, the Xfinity controversy that saw Keebler Gibbs basically run through his own teammate and then quote Jesus to justify it, which is great, which tells you all you need to know about how deluded that idiot is. We'll also get into Fish Lips winning his 14th Grand Prix, breaking a record that was held for since 2013 with Sebastian Vettel, but prior Michael Schumacher. So now he's the all-time record holder. We'll get into the rest of the field there. Lewis Hamilton gets another second place finish. Sergio Perez gets a third place finish. So the same podium as last year. get into the drivers and constructors point standings and other keys, stories that took place with just 2 races to go. In the roundup, we'll go over the supercars at Surfers Paradise this past weekend. We'll also get into the NHRA at Las Vegas for all the categories there and the pro categories. Maggot Enders gets another Pro Stock Championship. But the other Top Fuel, Funny Car, Pro Stock Motorcycle are all still in play going to Pomona. One Anthony Wayne Stewart made his drag racing debut in Top Alcohol Dragster, qualified P2 on his first run, and was 0.2 of a second away from winning his Top Alcohol Dragster debut, losing to a legacy driver, the daughter of Jay Payne, the legendary Top Alcohol Funny Car and dragster driver, pro mod, etc. And her mom, Shelly Anderson, who drove in Top Fuel many years ago and won Top Fuel races, and her uncle Randy Anderson, who won in Funny Car. So legacy driver there, winning that race. So not something you can't be mad about that to be that close. So I mean, at least Matt Hagan won in the Funny Car though. MotoGP, Moto2 at Valencia, the last race of the year. We'll preview that. We'll get into NFL Week 8 as Joe Burrow has already thrown an interception because he doesn't have Jamar Chase. So I am no quarterbacks now, it seems like. We'll get into fantasy where Josh ends up with one of the best scores, but still ends up not being able to get the win, while I'm going to be in the same spot more than likely. The Niners win. Jacksonville has a brutal defeat at the hands of the Denver Broncos. Trevor Lawrence is decision making, especially in the red zone, is pretty bad. I know Josh will have more to say on that. I already know about it because of my mediocre scores that I've received from Trevor Lawrence this week in my fantasy teams.
Bait him.
We will preview the Phoenix triple header for all 3 series. We'll go over our picks because at the end of the day, more than likely, one of the 4 championship people will win. There's 5 in the case of the Cup Series, so that kind of makes it a little more of a difference. But we'll see who we pick to win, who we think is going to be the champion. That means it'll be the champion. And wild card picks for those races. Josh will get into the sim segment, talk about iRacing, and we can get into the fact that Ross Chastain drove GameCube with his brother and learned how to do that, and he did it yesterday. So credit to NASCAR Thunder for showing plenty of people that you can make it happen, at least at Martinsville. And then we'll close the deal. So yeah, everybody's talking about the fact that Ross Chastain did what he did, and it was in Golf Digest. I get the email, and it was on the bottom of the one email of Golf Digest. It was trending. It was number 1 play on SportsCenter. It's one of the craziest things ever lived. Trying to explain it, I can't explain it. The announcers couldn't explain it. Phil Spain and his girlfriend Sarah were at the racetrack and were videotaping that. That was literally the most action that took place the whole entire day. It wasn't a very good race. Denny Hamlin dominated the majority of the race, won the first 2 stages, but his teammate Christopher Bell at the end was able to come through. He led 150 laps, so the Joe Gibbs Racing team led 350 laps between those two cars, and then you add Hendrick Motorsports with the 5 and the 9 led 110 well, around 115. So 4 cars led the majority of the race yesterday, but in the end, Christopher Bell, for a second consecutive round, gets the Hail Mary win and locks himself into the championship for the first time in the Cup Series. Former Truck Series champion Christopher Bell has competed for Xfinity titles, but has not been able to close in that deal. So now he's going to have a chance at a Cup title. Kyle Larson finished second and advanced for the Owners' Championship. Ryan Blaney is finished third. Ross Chastain gets moved up to fourth due to something we'll mention in a moment. Denny Hamlin fifth, Joey Logano sixth, William Byron seventh, Bubba Wallace eighth, Chase Briscoe ninth, and Chase Elliott, William Clyde Elliott the second, was 10th. So 9 of the top 10 were playoff drivers. Harrison Burton, Daniel Suarez, Todd Gilliland, Cold Custard, Eric Almirola, Kevin Harvick, and Michael McDowell were all on the lead lap at the end. So Stewart-Haas Racing had all of their cars on the lead lap, and Chase Briscoe late in the race stayed out on tires. So did Cole Custer, and he had a good run going, probably one of the best runs he's had all year, and got good stage points, but the tires kind of went away from him there. But yeah, I mean, we have to get into it. I mean, Christopher Bell, for the second round in a row, Josh, goes and gets that victory. Had to pass Chase Briscoe with I think 4 laps to go or something, or 8 laps, whatever. I think it was 4 laps to go. He kind of moved him a little bit, but Briscoe had no bite. Entering center off, he was kind of going and having issues kind of pushing in the corners. So he had a valiant effort, got the lead, was up to 1.1 seconds, but fresh tires were behind him with Christopher Bell, with Larson, and Brad Keselowski, who ended up getting disqualified due to
weight limits.
Minimum weight requirement issue. Was in the front all day, qualified 6th, and then was in the top 10 both stages, and was and finished 4th in the race. So, but after in post-race inspection got DQ'd, so he ends up finishing dead last, which is pretty brutal. It's been quite a year for Brad as an owner, his first year as an owner. So Christopher Bell, he's going to be racing for a championship on Sunday, and he's going to be joined by, of course, Joey Logano, who won the first race of the round at Vegas, and then last week was
Kyle Larson winning it for the owner's title.
Won and got in for the owner's title at Homestead. And then this week, Christopher Bell gets the victory. So 2 guys get in on victories, and then William Clyde Elliott II gets in on points, and Ross Chastain with his kamikaze move at the end of the race made up 5 spots in one corner and advances to the final 4. It was quite an insane finish, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite an insane finish, and for start off for Chris Bell, I mean, coming to the last, before the last caution, it was looking like it was going to be between him and Ryan Blaney, and then the caution comes out for Rick Ware Racing's number 15, and that kind of set things in motion for the finish. And I thought Chase Briscoe, he stayed out, and I thought maybe it'd actually work out because we've seen this year with this car on the short tracks, maybe the tire wear wouldn't be enough, but evidently it was. After a certain amount of time, the tires just completely went away on the number 14, and Chris Bell was able to make the moves to get up into second, and then Brad Keselowski got up to Chase Briscoe and tried to bump him out of the way, and then he got loose, and then that opened the door for Chris Bell to get around Keselowski, and then got around Chase Briscoe there and took the lead, and then took the overall victory in the race. And yeah, it's the second time this happened in the chase or the playoffs this year. Of course, Chris Bell got the clutch win at the Charlotte Roval to get in. Almost kind of the same way too, because he had way better tires at the end there, and this race here he had the best tires there at the end, and managed to win the race and get into the final four. And yeah, I think obviously Ross Chastain, we'll get him to in a minute, but had the I think we all probably would have thought he would made it into this. So the fact that he's in it is not surprising. The way he made it in, of course, surprising. But Chris Bell, I don't think we had him on our list of drivers who could get in, and would have thought his teammate in Joe Gibbs Racing, Denny Hamlin, would have gotten into this playoff Final Four rather than him. I mean, if we go back to our predictions all the way back before this whole thing started, when we had Joe on at the end of August. We had, I think, I had Elliott, Logano, Harvick, and Hamlin, and then he had Elliott, Logano, Reddick, and Hamlin, and we both he had Chris Bell eliminated the round of 12, and I had him eliminated the round of 12. So, he made it past both those rounds, and now he's in the Final Four, and could be a legitimate threat to win this title, actually, based on how he's performed this season. Phoenix is definitely a track that he could run well at and run up front. So he's definitely someone you can't count out just because they've been off and on this year. And so would be a shocker if he's able to win this race, this championship. But going on to Ross Chastain, of course, everybody's talked about him. But what's really legendary about this move is the fact that he passed so many cars in one corner, like you said, five cars, and not only that, but just the rate of speed. He set a new track record at Martinsville for a stock car, which the fastest one I think was 19. Kyle Larson had 19.9, I think, in his pole lap, and I think the fastest lap ever for a car at stock car at Martinsville was Jamie McMurray in 2014. So just I think it was the 10th faster than that. Just the amount of speed that he was going, just a incredible rate of speed. And I feel like you try this at another track. We've seen Carl Edwards do it. He didn't have the right trajectory because he took the same line and went lower to pass Jimmy Johnson in 2008 at Kansas. Then Kyle Larson kind of did it last year at Darlington. But Martinsville is a perfect track because it has a small radius, and you have to normally brake pretty heavily to get in the corner and get out of it. But last lap, when you got all or nothing on the line, you can just floor it and just ride the wall to victory. And just the way with physics and the next gen car being super stiff, and actually worked out. So it's a genius move, honestly. I mean, anybody could have done it, but takes a lot of guts to do it, and it's not something you normally think of doing. But and when we've seen it happen, we've seen it only with two cars, like the leader in second place doing it, like we mentioned with Edwards and Johnson, and then Larson and Hamlin. So he passed so many cars on that one corner. Just ingenuity of that move. And I told you last night, it reminded me of the pass at Laguna Seca in 1996 with Zanardi and Brian Herta, and Chip Ganassi agreed with that, and he said it was exactly like that. And I mean, it's a bonsai move on the last lap, and you gotta do what you gotta do. So that's glad to see that Chip was thinking the same thing. And then not only that, but then I also just thought of this earlier, with Ryan Newman, 2014 at Phoenix. He went in deep into the corner and doored Kyle Larson into the wall to make it into the Final Four, and eliminated Jeff Gordon. Very similar fashion here. The same idea. You floor it and hope for the best. And Ross Chastain eliminates his rival this season, Denny Hamlin, from getting into the Final Four in NASCAR. So just a lot of a lot of drama in that moment, and he's able to pull it off. And in fact, with Brad's penalty, he didn't even need to pass, or this move didn't even need to happen. He could have just completely lucked into it by virtue of Brad's penalty, but it happened, and it's got everybody talking. So yeah, I mean, I don't think I would have been able to pull off that move in iRacing because number one, I normally don't think of that. You want to avoid the wall in iRacing, with the points. I guess how it works and the licensing system. You have to avoid incidents, and probably would have accrued some incident points there. But of course, you know. People are wondering, why don't people try this out more? And I mean, it's exactly why you don't try it more because you destroy the car, and most cases you want to try to bring it back home in one piece. But in this scenario, a unique scenario, you had to go for broke and try it. So in this case, bring home the steering wheel or bring home nothing. Brought home the steering wheel, and Ross Chastain in the championship 4, and definitely has a shot there. And then you talk about Chase Elliott. He ended up being, because Chris Bell barely made it in, with the win, and it put Elliott's hopes on the line, but he safely made it in. I think +4, into the playoff Final Four, and then Joey Logano, of course, already secure. So you have two former champions going up in the Final Four against two guys that have never won a championship, have never been in this position before. Chris Bell, of course, won truck championship many years ago, but now you have him and Ross Chastain, of course, many years ago, starting park guy, watermelon farmer. I mean, you call it a Hail Mary. I mean, people, I think, online are calling it the Hail Melon, and it's exactly what it was. So Ross Chastain in the Final Four here as we go to Phoenix. But trying to think of something else of this incident. Oh yeah, well, Larson's also in the Final Four for the owners' points, and we'll get into it later. But it's a unique scenario there too, because as long as he wins, he wins the owners' championship. If Elliott wins, he still has a chance. So it's going to be interesting to watch that scenario where you have a split, possibly a split title there. But yeah, just an exciting race at the end to watch. Of course, the middle portion, beginning portion, I didn't think it was as bad as the beginning or the spring Martinsville race, but I think there's a little bit more variance here, and you could see a little bit more tire wear strategy, but still a lot of work to be done. Especially you saw at the end, Ryan Blaney could have had a chance to go up against Chris Bell and make what could have been a winning pass, but which may have happened in the old car, but in this car, there's a lot of opportunities to make up for it, and to easily defeat whoever is trying to pass you. So a lot of work to be done in this car to make it, I guess, more palatable on the road courses in terms of passing, and on the short tracks in terms of passing. So, maybe they have to go to a different short track package. Like, IndyCar has a high horsepower short track package with, their short track car, and on the road courses, street courses, has more horsepower, different aero kit there. Maybe NASCAR's got to do something similar to that. For their car when they go to the road courses and the short tracks, try to make it more raceable among the competitors. So, we'll have to see if they think of something like that. But, overall, pretty legendary ending, I think, to that Martinsville race here on Sunday.
It's going to be utilized, I think, by Martinsville Speedway and NASCAR for eternity, going into their 75th year next year. That move is going to be used in, I think, every possible promotional package they can find. And if Ross Chastain can go and win the championship next Sunday, it'll be, one of the great underdog stories of all time coming through. I mean, going back how many years ago to not having a ride, possibly having a ride, sponsor going down in flames, to having a start and park and piecemeal rides together, to getting an actual cup ride last year, to now being in a position to be in the Final Four. Christopher Bell, after struggles, and I mean, Eric Jones had similar struggles, and Gibbs got rid of him. In this case, Gibbs knew that Toyota wasn't going to allow him to be let go, and he needs to keep him. And when you consider what else is coming, and it's not very good, he really needs Christopher Bell to be good. And him and Adam Stevens are a great combination, and they've proven it in this playoff to win 2 races here in must-win situations. What was it you said about the fastest lap? Yeah, there was 18.845, 100.483 miles an hour. The old track record was Jamie McMurray in qualifying from 2014, as you said. Josh, I think it was, what is it? I have to go back. Go back here in a second and bring up the qualifying results. So great, the thing is loading slow. The qualifying results was what is with this thing? Going so slow now. Yeah, it was an 1895. So actually, he was with the. I don't even know what the package. It was a Gen 6 car. I don't know if it was low downforce, high horsepower.
So
In
that was
14.
the high horsepower, high downforce car. I think that one they
Okay.
had 9. I think they had 9-inch spoilers or 8-inch spoilers. I want to say 8-inch spoilers in 2014 with about 900 horsepower with the Gen 6 car. Um, so Ross Chastain ran
It was a
18.
10 thought
Yeah,
faster.
18.845. The actual track record in qualifying was 18.898 by Joey Logano. So I think that you mentioned actually was we mentioned it was Jamie McMurray, but I think Joey Logano must have said it because that was when they had the first, second round, third round qualifying in
Okay.
that era, and probably was in one of those rounds before the final round. So Logano has the official track qualifying record, and then Ross Chastain has the overall track record. Of
In a
course,
cup car.
yeah, in a cup car. So, which of course, probably will never happen again unless somebody else decides to floor it into turn one, and maybe they even floor it into turn 1 and 2 in addition to turn 3 and 4. And then maybe you'll get a 110-mile-an-hour lap or something like that, and then set the all-time record at Martinsville. So crazy to see,
Yeah.
but you know, just a fast lap
That's
there
how
at
they
the
should
end.
run the truck series
Yeah.
there. I think the truck series, because half of them run over each other anyway, they should just go and run the wall. That would be the new way to run these flat pavement tracks. I think they should try that out at New Hampshire next year too. Might as well go and change it up a little bit, but uh, it's quite a situation there. What happened? I'm still kind of can't believe I can't believe what I just saw. Like that's just insane. Chris Bell getting in, Elliott proving that going and earning as many points as he did in the regular season was necessary, because if he hadn't, he would have been out of this championship. I mean, he was already out of the owners' championship, the driver points. Um, as it stands, they did the reset, so that's the driver points before the reset. Saw him be 3 points out behind, so he ended up being on the bump based on um, Chris Bell getting the win. So actually, yeah, Chase Elliott was on the bump spot, and he only got in by 4 points, which is crazy to think when he had 46 playoff points. He has had a pretty mediocre playoff um, outside of the win at Talladega, and but it doesn't mean he can't go out and win at Phoenix again. So we'll see about that. And then Joey Logano, of course, won at Vegas, past Briscoe late in that race to win it, and that's one thing I'll reference for Chase Briscoe being in a spot now where he ended up finishing right now as it stands with one race to go. He had a chance to win. He was a few laps away possibly from winning, and now he is 10th in points, 40 points ahead of Austin Dillon, and 15 points behind Daniel Suarez. So with a decent race performance, if he can go, if they, I mean, I have a hard time believing they'll allow it. It never has happened in the Cup Series. It's happened in other series, mainly the trucks. But if he can repeat at Phoenix as he did in March, which during this playoff, he has been a different driver. Johnny Klausmeyer's done a good job, and I've not been a fan of his for the basically 2 years that he's been on the box for Joey Logano. For Chase Briscoe. He wasn't really doing much with Boyer, but then I always thought Boyer was not that good anyway. You look at the cars that they've been putting out the last 2 years have not been great. So Briscoe's been having to take liberties and go and overdrive the car, which has cost him a lot. And he didn't overdrive. He tried all he could. And I think Vegas, they were closer, but that car was a dog shit car too. I mean, they had dog shit cars through a lot of this playoff, but they made up for it late in races. And I think that gives a sign that there is fight, there is heart, and if they make the right changes and they make some adjustments going into 2023. I was talking to somebody offline, and I was saying if they could make adjustments and if Rodney Childers starts to impart more, may take a bigger role in how these cars are made and that they're all more, similar to the four, I think Chase Briscoe would benefit from that greatly. I would also think he'd benefit from a crew chief change, even with the fact that Klausmeier has been able to make the adjustments and make some changes where they were able to be better at the end of races. They need to be good throughout all races, throughout the entire race. You can't just be good at the end. You lose out on those stage points and playoff points. But valiant effort, strong possibility to finish in the top 10 in points, which would mean he'd be the highest placed driver in the Stewart-Haas stable, because Harvick right now is 16th. He's 19 points behind Alex Bowman, who hasn't even run for 5 weeks. He's coming back this week after the concussion protocols and all from Texas. Kyle Busch, that's one thing I want to bring up. I mean, of course, Keselowski gets disqualified, loses out on a ton of points, and probably means he will end up 24th in the standings. Considering how many points he lost, 100 points earlier this year, he'd be in close to the top 20. He'd be over his teammate Chris Buescher if he hadn't lost those 100 points earlier in the year. And there's the couple of shocking things were the fact that Kyle Busch. I'm just going and slipping with all kinds of names right now. Kyle Busch had a nightmare race. I mean, it's almost like they're not even trying, which is crazy when you have one of the best drivers ever. He was in no man's land for most of the day, finished 6 laps down in 29th. Austin Dillon had a crash and fell out, but that's whatever. Who cares? BJ McLeod's car caught on fire, which was the same issue that got Chase Briscoe at Richmond and is seemingly a Ford problem, not for the other cars, which I don't get why that's the case if they're all made the same. But with the rubber getting caught and then catching fire because of where the exhaust manifold is and all that. Tyler Reddick had issues in his car, Josh, and had to get out. And it sounds like he had, it seems like concussion symptoms. We're getting into Alex Bowman coming back because of his wreck at Texas, and then having Tyler Reddick, who's going into his final race for Richard Childress on Sunday, if he's cleared, having to get out of the car, and they're not telling us for sure what it is. I thought it was like old school Martinsville where, they knock crush panels in or whatever, and he got fumes. But it seems like concussion symptoms or something in that realm made Tyler Reddick, he wasn't feeling well. He got out of the car. And hopefully he'll be all right. His future mentor, Kurt Busch, was at the racetrack this weekend, kind of a jack of all trades for 2311, but he's out of the car, of course. And then Bowman was at the track this weekend, and he'll be back in the car next week. But this is a bad sign now. He's not the only one. This is the latest example, and it maybe comes to show that for all the progress that has been made with this car at certain tracks, and you brought it up with how bad it races at road courses and at short tracks, this glaring issue, this red light, like bright, sirens have to go off, guys getting sick, having to get out of the car. If they're in incidents, it's almost like they have to get checked every week if they're involved in an incident, to make sure that they're able to pass concussion protocols, which was never an issue before. And there's so many people back in the day that suffered concussions. I mean, you're a Junior fan. I'm an Ernie Irvan fan, Davey Allison fan. They got knocked out. I mean, Ernie had serious accidents. And then Davey had huge accidents. It's a bad sign. And I guess in that case, it's a good thing that there's only one race to go. Hopefully there won't be any serious wrecks in the Cup Series at Phoenix.
I mean, yeah, it's been a continuing issue, and yeah, it's just another chapter, another page in this book of concussions that's been written this year in the Cup Series. And let's look at it from the football perspective. Obviously we've seen players in the NFL get hurt on hits that didn't look all that bad, but they got their bell rung. We've seen players get up after pretty hard hits, and on the other side, we've seen players get up or not get up after pretty heavy hits, and they got knocked out, got carried away on the stretcher, and some cases. And in this instance here in NASCAR, we've I mean, in the NFL, going back to that, I mean, we've seen players, obviously, if they don't look good enough on the field, if they look like they woozy, they pull them out of the game, or they're supposed to pull them out of the game and go to concussion protocols. And now with NASCAR, with these impacts, do they have to implement a system now where they basically have to go through concussion protocols every time they've been in an incident on the track? Maybe I don't know what the process is, when they check and release them from the care center, but I imagine now that concussion checks are probably part of the protocol there. But it's almost like now NASCAR has to actually put a official concussion protocol system, and that if driver gets an impact, he goes into concussion protocols, and then throughout the week they have to monitor him or her throughout the week, and give them the all clear at the end of the week if they're good to go for racing. Is that where we have to go for NASCAR these days in the Cup Series with as heavy as the impacts have been? We'll see. And they've talked about the changing of the chassis in the rear of the car to try to make it absorb hits better. But of course, we won't find out until next year when they start crashing again. And when we won't see it until testing. And even then, it's not going to really play out until you see it in race form. And they're going to race differently, of course, than how they test. So the impacts are probably going to feel a lot more different. And, certainly, you're not going to be as ready for it, or I don't know, as prepared for it, I guess, as you might be in a practice session. Um, so it's just not not a good sign right now. I mean, the other question is if Reddick wasn't feeling good, why didn't and the team member, the RCR team said, or it was been reported that he wasn't feeling well before this race. Like, why was he even in the car in the first place? If he wasn't feeling good, they should have pulled him out of the car prior to the weekend and put in another guide, someone from the Xfinity Series. So that's the other the other side of it that you have to consider. But yeah, it's not a good look right now, of course. And you brought up, we talked about Ross Chastain right now as well. Like, I mean, who's not to say that he might have felt something after that wall riding, to get into the championship. I mean, he even said himself, he was like, my head might be a bit scrambled and everything, and wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't, or if it was scrambled. So, it's just another thing to keep in mind. Um, as we go to the last race of the season, and hopefully we don't have any more incidents like this or anything like this where driver gets a concussion on I mean, obviously they're not all preventable, but something in a normal accident that we've been used to seeing. Hopefully we see less concussions, and drivers continuing to be able to race as long as they want to. So yeah, just a unfortunate scenario, and we'll see what they do in the off season, and hopefully it works. But just another piece of evidence against this car in terms of safety.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we'll talk about it here as the next few weeks go by, and there isn't a whole lot of racing. We can come up with some ideas and what we may think might be better things for this car for next year. Um, but I mean, they've already started to test the rear bumper structure, and my fear of that is based on the videos they've shown on social media that we might have the old school. They go and nail it right into the windshield, and you'll have the gas tanks going and blowing up and having fires like they used to have back in the 90s and early mid 90s, when cars would go and slam the wall rear end first, and it would go push the gas tank all the way into the center of the car. Sterling Marlin at Bristol '92 being an example of that. There's plenty of examples, honestly, in regards to that, but we'll talk about that as we go on. Speaking of somebody who slams somebody into the wall and doesn't really care about why or how, um, it Keebler Gibbs went and decided to use up his teammate Buckshot Jones in the final laps of the race at Martinsville. Multiple restarts took place there. So the Dead On Tools 250, they ran 19 extra laps because of the green white checkered policy, and Keebler Gibbs won one stage, led the most laps, won the race. Him and his teammate led 200 of the 269 laps. 69! Sheldon Creed finished second, Riley Herbst third, Noah Gregson fourth, Justin Allgaier fifth, Sam Mayer sixth. So 3 junior motorsports cars. Nick Sanchez finishes seventh in his next to last race in that car, since Parker Kligerman will be driving it full time next year. Daniel Hemrick from 37th finished eighth. Austin Hill from 36th finished ninth, but it wasn't enough to make the final four. And then Blaine Perkins finished 10th for Our Motorsports there. Jeb Burton just outside the top 10. Raja Caruth finished 12th. Myatt Snyder and Austin Hill got into it after the race. Myatt Snyder finished 14th. AJ Allmendinger had issues and finished 16th. Sammy Smith, driving the 18 car, got used up by Keebler as well. Josh Berry got, I think Josh Berry got spun. I forgot about all the stuff that went on there. But, I mean, the initial thing we have to talk about is Keebler Gibbs. Gregson called it Ty Gibbs racing. His actions throughout this season and in general, his whole entire career, have shown a general lack of respect or wherewithal for other drivers. Running through both of his teammates late in this race is yet another example of that. Not really showing any real regard, because the irony in all of this is he was already locked into the Final Four, and by if he had let Brandon Jones win, but raced him hard and with but not to the point of just sending him, there's a possibility Joe Gibbs would have 2 cars in the Final Four, just the same way as Hendrick essentially has 2 cars in the Final 5 in the Cup Series. And also ThorSport has 2 trucks in the Final 4 in the Truck Series. That's better for the organization. But in Ty Gibbs' case, and of course with his grandfather justifying any of his actions, he drives like an asshat, and he has a Napoleon complex, and he drives like a tool. I mean, his dad once famously got put firewall deep into a wall intentionally by Kevin Harvick, and Kevin Harvick got suspended the next day for a race, for a Cup Series race. Herman had to drive the 29 car. So you would think that his dad would have some balls and tell him to knock it off, or that his grandfather, considering some of the drivers he has had, like Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Tony Stewart, that this isn't going to work. Because especially with the car he hasn't done much of anything in this next gen car, but knowing what it is and knowing that he has a target on his back, it's not a good look for him. And especially going into this weekend's race, it's not a good look for him, knowing that Buckshot Jones doesn't care because he's not going to be driving for Joe Gibbs Racing. Next year, he's driving for Junior Motorsports, taking over Gregson's car. And then the other 3 cars that are in this Final 4 are the Junior Motorsports cars, who are all going to be his teammates. So, or 2 of those guys are going to be his teammates next year. So what is it to him to not just run over Keebler and put him in the wall? Like, really? Everybody and their mother wants to put Ty Gibbs in the wall. That is, outside of like his family and like 15 people that are his fans. He's literally one of the douchiest guys I've ever seen in my life. Like, he's Max Verstappen level arrogant and doesn't have any awareness whatsoever. He may have talent, but he has no awareness, and it's disturbing. To be fair, and it shows where the sport is going, and it's going downhill in terms of driver respect and talent in that sense.
Yeah, with Ty Gibbs and Brandon Jones, they were at it, the last couple of restarts of that race before going into the final lap, and contrast that with AJ Allmendinger and Justin Allgaier. Previously, they were bumping each other for a few laps, and then they were able to let it go peacefully, and Allmendinger ended up getting a flat tire, and that ended him there. But afterwards they shook hands and gave each other respect and everything. And then Ty Gibbs, on the other hand, went and drove it in too deep and got his teammate there, and just flat out took out his own guy, and didn't have to win that race. Would have already been locked in already, because he locked in the first stage the race. And goes out and takes out his teammate, and now he's gonna have to go against 3 junior motorsports cars to uh, you know win the championship, and just not a good look at all. And everybody's hated him this whole year. For the most part, he puts on this nice guy act, compares himself to the Lord, and says, "Oh yeah, well if they hated Jesus, they'll hate me too." I mean, that's incredible comparison to make, and just not a good way to compare yourself there. You know, uh, I don't really know how you could even put yourself on that level. But just um, unaware move, I guess, to be able to do that, and he went and wrecked Brandon Jones, and I fully expect Brandon Jones to try to pay him back next weekend at Phoenix Raceway, and just he shows his character time and time again. He bumped John Hunter Nemechek out of the way in Richmond earlier this year, and then he went and flat out dumped his teammate in turn one at Martinsville, and just didn't need to do that, and took out. It doesn't take any talent to wreck a guy to win the race. So just not a good look at all. And I was telling you the other night, with comparing him to Gregson, people don't like Gregson some people don't like Gregson because of his character and maybe the way he races and the things he's done this year. Of course, hooked what's his face, Sage Karam in the right rear at Road America. Probably the best example of that. But at least Chastain, or not Chastain, at least Noah Gregson is honest. At least he's authentic in some ways, and he Ty Gibbs, on the other hand, puts on the nice guy act when he's not behind the wheel, and then as soon as he gets behind the wheel, he acts like a complete jerk. So at least he's honest and authentic, and can't fault him, or I mean, we can, but at least what kind of guy he is. On the other hand, you have somebody who's just a complete fraud type of person. So that's just Ty Gibbs, public enemy number one in the Xfinity Series. So, and probably all on NASCAR. So he's gonna get it in the Cup Series. If he pulls off this type of thing, and good luck trying to wreck people in the Cup Series, especially with this car. I mean, he's aware of it too, because he's replacing right now the guy that's gonna retire from the sport because of concussions, and he'll put somebody in the wall and give him a concussion, and that's just shows the lack of awareness for safety, and just being a teammate, a good race car driver. So just disappointing move to see from Ty Gibbs, and maybe now people will finally turn on him, because I feel like there's probably still some people that were cheering for him and stuff because he has talent and everything, and it's just like, well, why even root for a guy like that in the first place? So after that incident, so we'll see. Obviously they're not penalizing this. I mean, they should. I feel like they should have penalized that type of move. I mean, they took it away from Ricky Rudd after he spun Davey Allison Sonoma back in 1990, and
It's way 91,
yeah,
and it was way less egregious than
way
this.
less egregious than that, and everything. And I mean, I don't know how many other incidents did that happen where somebody spun somebody out like that for the win and didn't get penalized. I don't know. So obviously, it's
Well,
not
they
happened in
never
a long time.
penalized Earnhardt when he did it,
Well, yeah, true.
like he did at Bristol to Terry Labonte.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, just like I don't think Dale Senior would have wrecked his teammate though. So
yeah. Well, he didn't care for Skinner. To
well,
be
yeah,
fair,
that's
so.
true. That's true. But I still don't think he would have wrecked his teammate like that to win a race. But maybe he would have. But I don't know. But yeah, just not a not a honorable way to win in NASCAR. I feel like so. We'll see what he does in Phoenix, if he's able to. I mean, I like I said, I like the quote from Noah Gregson. He's like, I mean Ty Gibbs Racing. Oh, sorry, I mean Joe Gibbs Racing. So yeah, it's Ty Gibbs Racing for sure because he's obviously Grandpa Joe Gibbs is clearly revolving the race team around his grandson and everything. So yeah, it just shows what it's all about over for the Toyota camp. So yeah.
Yeah, it's just disgusting, really, and it's sad that they are promoting this guy as one of these next big things of NASCAR, and the dipshit won the ARCA title and he won a bunch of races last year. I mean, hell, he ran into Chase Briscoe last year at Charlotte when he was running a limited schedule to win an Xfinity race, and I think that was the only race Chase Briscoe ran in an Xfinity car last year. Um, I mean, he just has this thing where he believes he's like God's. I mean, he literally thinks he's God's gift to racing. And I think that's the same kind of arrogance and douchiness that he reminds me of Verstappen and some of these other people like Kyle Busch in earlier years and people like that. And it's like, fine, you may be good, but somebody sends you firewall deep into the wall, you're not going to really feel so good about it. And I think a lot of these guys, in the old days, he'd have gotten his ass kicked. Now they don't do that anymore because these pit crew guys get in the way and they're all old football or basketball or hockey players. So now they use their cars as weapons. So in this case, he needs to get sent in the wall. And I mean, it's terrible to say, and how dangerous the sport is and getting put in the wall and all that. I mean, the Xfinity car is a safer car than the Cup car at this point, but between the likes of Brandon Jones, there's gonna be Sammy Smith, but he's not really gonna do anything because I assume he's gonna be one of the guys that's driving for them next year because of the money he brings to the table. John Hunter's not racing in this race, but I would venture to say that he will be in one of the cars next year. I would assume Joe Gibbs is going to run 3 cars, so I mean that's at least 2 of them. I don't know. Maybe the third car will be quote star car. They'll instead of being, because right now this year they're running 3 cars. Right, they're running the 18, 19, and the 54. So the 18 and the 19, I guess, would be the regular cars next year, and then the 54. Hopefully they'll renumber it because it has no relevance. I don't understand why he's running the 54 in the first place. It's a Kyle Busch thing. They would probably run the 20 or whatever, bring in 18, 19, and 20 for symmetry, and then they'll make that the star car or something. But I guess I figure Sammy Smith will be in one of them cars, but I don't. I think I'm rooting more to see Ty Gibbs in the wall before the end of the first stage. I think I'm curious to see what kind of bets they're going to be now. I'm going to have to kind of look around. It's not that I bet much anymore, mainly because I'm not. My finances suck, but that's kind of a bet that I want to see. What the over under is on how many laps it'll take for somebody to put Ty Gibbs in the wall. Because it would be a gift. It would be a gift from God. It's called karma for being a piece of shit. But in the case of the guys that, as we said before, that'll be in the final 4, Gregson, Barry, Gibbs, Allgaier ends up 12 points ahead of Allmendinger, so Allmendinger will not be able to win an Xfinity title. To be fair, outside of the road courses and super speedways, and maybe to a lesser extent, some short tracks, but not every short track, they weren't that good of a team. They weren't good enough, and they weren't able to make the adjustments or make the cars good enough to win. And that's why one of the cars got eliminated in the first round, why one of them didn't even make the playoff, and then AJ gets knocked out here, even with as many wins as he had. Austin Hill is somebody that will be a prohibitive favorite going into next year. with the year under his belt, but falls short. Bad qualifying on Friday kind of relegated him and put him, and he didn't have a great round anyway. Relegated him, but he'll have a chance next year. Going to be running Beard Motorsports 62 6 times, so that's an opportunity for him as well in the Cup Series. I'd assume RCR is going to be looking at, they want to add a third car. I think they're going to be looking at trying to put Austin Hill in that car, or Creed, depending on what happens. But we'll see with the Xfinity Series. Okay, so let's move forward into the Grand Prix of Mexico. What's it called? Fish Lips. Quite a great weekend for them. They basically get away with going over the cost cap. They don't want to talk to Sky because they feel aggrieved by how people talk about them. In large part because they're bullshit artists. But they win another race. It was basically a runaway. The first segment of the race was pretty interesting. There was some intrigue there. Mercedes Red Bull basically made the race for themselves because they pitted Sergio Perez, so Lewis Hamilton had to cover that off for track position. They kept George Russell out for a longer time, but then weren't really committed to that, and then pitted him to the point where he was essentially going to finish fourth. And then Max Verstappen pitted when he pitted and was able to dictate the rest of the race from the front. So the results of the Mexican Grand Prix is 14th win, breaking a record with Sebastian Vettel in 2013 and Michael Schumacher, I think in 2003, of 13 victories in a season. Wins the Grand Prix, and let's see here. Wins by 15.186 seconds over Lewis Hamilton. And then Hamilton was 2.911 seconds over Sergio Perez ahead there. So George Russell gets the fastest lap, finishes fourth. The Ferraris were basically non-existent the whole entire weekend. Those were the 6 cars on the lead lap. Daniel Ricciardo finishes first car 1 lap down in 7th, wins driver of the day. Esteban Ocon 8th, Lando Norris 9th, Valtteri Bottas 10th, a rare point for Alfa Romeo. Pierre Gasly 2 points away from a 1-race ban on his penalty points situation. Alex Albon 12th. Fernando Alonso having harsh words for the Alpine team with another reliability issue. It's probably karma for all the shit he talks about Lewis Hamilton, because he's a Napoleon complex fucking prick who can't get over the fact that Lewis beat him in 2007. And then Yuki Tsunoda, who got knocked out by Daniel Ricciardo when he made a weak passing maneuver in the race. There wasn't a whole lot that went on. There wasn't a whole lot of action after the start. I mean, Daniel Ricciardo was one of the only people that kind of made it interesting. There was action behind the top 6 cars with the DRS and all that, but in the end, Verstappen gets another win. 2 races to go and continue to set an all-time record. But Mercedes definitely has made progress here these last couple of races, and it may be a sign of possible gains going into 2023 for them, as Lewis has had a good run post-summer break. Josh?
Yeah, I mean, it was the Mexican Grand Prix. I mean, not a really whole lot to take away from it other than, it's continuing the victory tour for Max Verstappen, but at least behind him, it was a little bit interesting. And yeah, actually, I think I called this one right with Lewis in second and Sergio Perez finishing third. And I guess considering that I picked Lando, his teammate, being kind of the wild card of the day, I picked Lando as the wild card, and I mean his teammate ended up being kind of the show to finish seventh. So just interesting finish there for McLaren, but you know, um, not really a whole lot that you could talk about with this finish. But behind that, Lewis, I guess he had a little bit of battle with his teammate at the beginning of the race, but they couldn't make much of it, and then afterwards they were debating whether the strategy that Ricardo could have that if they could have implemented that strategy. And I think the difference to finish in seventh versus trying to win the race on the same strategy is probably a lot greater. And when you're going up against the rest of the field, it might be easier to pull off that kind of finish. But at the same time, trying to win the race on that type of strategy may not get you there, just based on how well Max Verstappen's car has performed this season, and how fast he's been. Maybe could have gotten a couple of laps led or something, but I feel like either you wouldn't be able to make enough time to get up to Verstappen to win the race, or you pass him at some point, but then he passes you back a couple of laps later. Just how his car works, but yeah, that's probably why you're not sure if that kind of move could have been made. Going from medium to soft and applying that to your team. But yeah, I think Mercedes, they had a good run with Lewis. In the middle of the summer, he had that stretch where he was getting third places on the podiums, but wasn't quite making it up there to really challenge. But now the last couple weeks he's gotten some podiums now, getting onto second, and have 2 races left in the year, and hard to see if he even wins still. But if he can end the year on a couple of podiums, that'd be a pretty good improvement from where they were at the beginning of the year. With Perez, continuing to finish in the podium and collect points for Red Bull. Perez, obviously he's done a solid job being teammate to Verstappen, and he's won a couple of races here and there this year, but doing a solid job, and likely ends in the top 3 in points for the year. But then of course you talk about Ferrari. Of course they weren't even really contending this weekend, and to be honest, I thought maybe that they would be contenders, and they only finished 5th and 6th, so they weren't even close to the podium this weekend. So just disappointing on that front for Ferrari, especially with the way that they'd like to end this season for their team, and have a little bit better momentum than what they've given so far this year. Just unfortunate for them to continue to have these type of results and everything. You mentioned Valtteri Bottas finishing in 10th, and to be honest, I think Bottas, he's had a couple of races, I think, in the beginning of the season where they finished solidly, but in the middle of the summer and up until now, they kind of lost that momentum and hadn't really finished all that well. But now they get a point for the championship, probably meaningless in the end, as far as being able to help them score points and make any progress. But it's a good result to have, something you can think about in the off season and how to make that team better compared to some of the other midfield teams like Williams and like Aston Martin. So yeah, just okay weekend of racing in Mexico City, but have to say it's just another event this year where Max Verstappen came out with the win, and he probably is going to set the record for wins this season in Formula One. Got 2 more races left, and can already say, I mean, they don't have a race this weekend, but we can already say he's probably going to win next weekend, or the next race in Formula One. So that's how predictable it's gotten this year. But maybe the other teams will try to close the gap next year with Red Bull.
Yeah, they can go. They know now they can go and break the cost cap thing, and it doesn't really matter. So, if Mercedes wanted to do it, they could do it. If Ferrari wanted to do it, they could do it as well. So, the precedent has been set. Will it matter because Red Bull has made a car that's so much better than anybody else? We will see. If Max Verstappen actually has to work for it, we'll see how he behaves. We've seen over time he doesn't really handle that very well. Of course, he's won the championship. Perez is 5 points out of Charles Leclerc for second in the Drivers' Championship. George Russell is fourth, 15 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton, and 19 points ahead of Carlos Sainz. So that's something to look at as the rest of the season goes on to see who can finish in the top five. Lando Norris is in his own world. Ocon and Alonso are likely going to stay there. Valtteri Bottas added a point, so now he is 11 points ahead of Sebastian Vettel, 12 points ahead of Daniel Ricciardo. So that's going to be a lot. That's going to be asking a lot. So Bottas, he had the great run at the start of the season, as you mentioned, Josh, up through Canada, and then after that, it's been barren for a while, and that was his first points he's had since the Canadian Grand Prix. So big time for that to happen. In regards to the constructors, it's 40 points between Ferrari and Mercedes with 2 races to go. And in the last 3 races, last 2 races, Mercedes has outscored Ferrari, and then they were only a point behind at Japan. In 3, if we go all the way back to Austria, Mercedes has either been ahead or close to the Ferrari team in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Grand Prix. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So, I mean, yeah, they had a terrible race at Singapore, and that's really what might be the difference, because that's a 31-point difference. Ferrari has a 40-point lead right now. The Belgian Grand Prix was 11 points there. And so those are, and they had small gaps here and there, but 2 races to go. We'll see what happens with Mercedes. Alpine only gets 1 point score, while McLaren gets both teams in their points. 7 points between those two going into Brazil. Alfa Romeo has a 4-point lead on Aston Martin. So that's still an interesting battle. Haas is 1 point ahead of AlphaTauri for 8th in the constructors. So things that we have to look at going into the Brazilian Grand Prix. There will be a sprint race as well at that weekend. So for some of these teams that were trying to maintain or save their cars or engines and all that, something to look at going in there. Well, I mentioned Pierre Gasly has these 2 points away from a possible 1 race ban. Yuki Tsunoda about to lose 2 points off of his tally. So after, Verstappen will lose 2 points at the end of the year, conveniently. 23, 23, 23. 23. Valtteri Bottas same day will be clear. Lewis Hamilton actually doesn't have any penalty points. Something. People talk about him being a dirty driver. Yeah, I guess the penalty points say another thing. getting into, so let's move on from that. I mentioned about, Fernando Alonso made a quote earlier in the weekend about how Max Verstappen's championships were more difficult because he had somebody to race, even though he didn't have to race anybody. He had to race Lewis Hamilton, and he ran over him a couple times to make that happen last year. And then this year he had nobody to race, and then Lewis has won 7 world championships and has had to compete against Sebastian Vettel when he was at Ferrari. Had to compete not only against his teammates, uh, both of his teammates over time at Mercedes. He also had to compete at McLaren. He also had to beat Felipe Massa in 2008 for his first world championship. But don't let facts get in the way of your saltiness, Fernando. We get it. I get you're 5 foot tall and your girlfriend's taller than you. I get it that you've been in Formula One for like 80 years and you have not been able to close a championship out since 2006. But like, get a grip. You're just as big of an asshole as Max Verstappen, but you haven't done anything of great significance in a Formula One car in a decade. So, like, suck a dick. Honda hates you to the point where they don't even want to supply you an engine to go run Indy. That's how you've alienated multiple manufacturers and teams through your time. So your history is not so great. He's going down the path of Nelson Piquet, really, without the final results. Even though he has had great results over time previously in his career, but Daniel Ricciardo, I also want to mention, had an interesting day, but he got a 7th-place finish, a good run for him. Beat his teammate, had a bad qualifying run, was nowhere early in the day, but then was able to make it work in the end. As he's going to go off into probably being a test and reserve driver next year, because he's not going to drive for Williams and he's not going to drive for Haas. And those are the 2 seats that are left on the grid. Every other team either has their driver lineup set already. I'm trying to think. Alpha Tori. So everybody else has their driver lineup set. Logan Sargent, as we mentioned last week, will be in the Williams if he can get the super license points after Abu Dhabi. He was supposed to get an extra point from practice in FP1, but they didn't run him enough laps in FP1, so he didn't run 100K. He ran 1 lap short of that, which is pathetic by Williams. And look at Susie Colbert. We'll see what happens with that. Maybe they'll run him at Brazil to make up for that, and Abu Dhabi. So see what happens with that. Haas, we don't really know who's going to be in the second car, whether it's Mick, whether it's I'm forgetting what, Nico Hulkenberg or somebody else. So to be determined there. We don't know who Williams' other option would be if Logan Sargent isn't able to get through. Hopefully you will. Getting into the GSP roundup, BRT in the hunt for 26 supercar entry. So positioning expanded 2 cars during. Oh, nice. Spare teams setting idle and effectively carrying racing. Oh, okay. Talking to standalone entry. Camara's to purchase from AAA for Richie Stanaway. The R2 as well as the market. Okay. So that's interesting. So that'll be something to look at into the off season, trying to where they go and expand the grid, because they have racing entitlements contracts in essentially like the charter system in the Cup Series. Shane Van Gisbergen goes and wins at Surfers Paradise in both races. Not surprising. In race 1, wins over David Reynolds, Chaz Mostert, Will Davison, Cam Waters, Anton DePasquale finishes 6th. Race 2, Van Gisbergen over Mostert, Davison, Reynolds, Kostecki, Winterbottom, Cam Waters, Andre Heimgartner, Pither, Anton DePasquale finishes 10th. The points, see SVG 500, nearly 600. It's like 490 points up. So it's basically a lock. I mean, we're pretty certain it's a lock. I think there's only one race to go in the season. In the supercars, they're going to be running at Adelaide in December. Yeah, it's 490 points. I don't think there's any way. The most points you can get on a round, it looks like, is 300. So they didn't say anything about him winning the championship, but supercars, yeah, get into that. Unless they're running some sort of Repco Supercars Championship. Curbs are at the end of going. It's a milestone extended kill. Get through. Drove angry. Champ exceeded lead after. Okay, so Dane Magnus saying his anger motivated race 32. Ford on the side. Blah blah blah. Was frustration. Maybe. Blah 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 blah. Conclude without Adelaide streets in December. So yeah. So while it isn't locked up yet, he is basically won yet another. It'll be his 3rd Supercars championship of his career. He's dominated the last 2 years since Scott McLaughlin has left the category, and says 27. So I don't understand that. How is it show a different points? It shows 660 points on the 27. Yeah, so they have a totally different point thing. Oh, that's great. So how the hell has he not won the championship? That's what I don't understand. That makes no sense. Whatever. Let's just work under the assumption he's already won the championship. He won last year by 211 points over his teammate Jamie Winchcup in his last year driving. In 2020, Scott McLaughlin was coming off his 3rd consecutive championship. He won 3 in a row after losing the 2017 championship to Jamie Wincup by 21 points. I'm trying to see where SVG, he had won the championship in 2016. Yeah, he won in 2016 for Red Bull, the AAA team, and in 2016. So it'll be his 3rd championship, I think. I might be, for some reason, I feel like, yeah, Frosty won it in 15, and then 14 was Jamie Winchcup over SVG. 2013 was Winchcup over Craig Lowndes, his teammate. So it'll be his 3rd championship. So credit to him. Scott McLaughlin had plenty of nice things to say being there, and he's going to be a part of the announce team at Adelaide for the last race of the season at the start of December to end the season, the Adelaide 500. So that'll be 2 races, I think, there. Or maybe there's 3. Maybe that's why it's still a race 3. Yeah, so there'll be one. Oh no, there's only 2 races at Adelaide. So I guess there's 600 points in that. So there might be a chance. Whatever. I don't know how the points are, and I don't know how the points are not updated in the same way unless they didn't update them for up to date for this past weekend, which is entirely possible. NHRA at Las Vegas this past weekend. For me, in terms of what I wanted to see was Tony Stewart go and win. He fell short to Madison Payne, the daughter of Jay Payne and Shelly Anderson, and plenty of other people in our family that have won in NHRA. Doug Gordon and Top Alcohol Funny Car. Got some of these other people. They didn't call it a superstar. They don't have some of the other thing. They're in Pro Stock Motorcycle. Hector Arana Jr. won for a second consecutive race in the Pro Stock Motorcycle category. In the Pro Stock category, Eric Enders wins again and wins another championship. Matt Hagan wins Funny Car. Brittany Force wins in Top Fuel. Trying to get into that. She beats Mike Salinas in the final for Top Fuel. Matt Hagan beats Robert Height in Funny Car. Enders beats her teammate Troy Coughlin Jr. And then in Pro Stock, and Hector Arana Jr. beats Matt Smith in Pro Stock Motorcycle. As I mentioned, 0.2 of a second for Tony Stewart away from a possible first win in his first career NHRA start. The points for the three categories that are still in play going into the points and a half finale at Pomona for the I forget what they call the rate. I mean, it's a Winter Nationals and it's a Winter Nationals and then it's a World Finals. I think, yeah, the Auto Club NHRA Finals in a couple weeks' time. Brittany Force goes in with a 7-point lead on Justin Ashley, 66 on Mike Salinas, Antron Brown 78 back, Steve Torrance 87 back. I think essentially up to Austin Prock at minus 126 still has a shot. You can, when it comes to points and a half, I think it's 120. So, yeah, so it would take, you'd have to set a record or something. Really, the top five are the ones that are still in the mix there in Top Fuel. In Funny Car, it's a 3-horse race. Robert Height is 61 points ahead of Ron Cap, 63 ahead of Matt Hagan. Those are the three that are in the mix. All of them multi-world champions. So trying to add yet another trophy to their mantle. In Pro Stock Motorcycle, Matt Smith is up by 104 over Joey Gladstone. And essentially, that's his only person he really has to look at. Jerry Savwell's 136 back. Matt's wife, Angie, is 148 back. So I don't think the points will be able to get that far. So points are earned. Camping World Countdown. Points, and then events are go. Countdown adjustments. Countdown champions. Pomona 2, so 150 winner. Okay. Yeah, so points and a half. So it's like 100. Okay. So you get 10 points extra. 4, 3, 2. Okay. So yeah, up to Austin Prock and Top Fuel. And if you're within 150 points or thereabouts, 160 points in the standings, you have a minor shot. Josh Hart, in that sense, Austin Prock's 126 back. Josh Hart has still got a minuscule chance. In Pro Stock, it's over, of course. But it is a close battle between Aaron Stanfield and Troy Coughlin for second. Koretsky and Greg Anderson are separated by 10 points. It's 20 points between Stanfield and Coughlin, so that'll be something to look at. 1 point between Dallas Glenn and Matt Hartford. Christian Quadra's 11 points out of Derek Kramer. And then Mason McGahey is 5 points ahead of Bo Butner, 7 So there's actually a decent battle to see who'll make the top 10 in points. In Pro Stock behind Enders. It's still the 3 in Funny Car. And then in Pro Stock Motorcycle, Angie Smith, under that pretense, would still be in the mix, and Jerry Savoie. So we'll get into that in a couple weeks' time for the NHRA. Tony made a great run in Q1 in Top Alcohol Dragster, ran a 525 or thereabouts, I think. I have to go back into their Texas Fall Nationals. They didn't bother to update that. Lucas Oil schedule results. I don't want the divisional schedule. I want the national schedule. The heck? Divisional? What the fuck? Oh well. Anyway, so that was a good weekend for Tony in his NHRA debut, falling to, as we mentioned, falling to Madison Payne. Ran 525 with an 8, 271.57 in the final. Lost to Payne's 526 with a 2, 275.9. Top field drive training program. Definitely more fun. Definitely not anyone that has fenders on it. So I'm loving this sport. Yeah, because he's hating NASCAR these days. Qualified second in his debut in his first run. So we'll see what he does. We'll see if it means he's going to be driving in a pro category. I have a hard time believing that's what he's going to do. I think he's a little more realistic than that, just based on driving the 410 sprint car and how hard it was for him to compete in that. I think he has a more realistic view of things going into that. MotoGP running their finale this weekend in Valencia. Pecco Bagnaia has a 23-point lead over Fabio Quartararo. So essentially, Pecco Bagnaia has to finish 13th. As long as he has finished a race this year, he's had five DNFs, but of the races he has finished this year, only once has he finished outside of 13th. So, of the races he's finished this year. Fabio Quartararo needs to win. He has not won since Germany back in the summer. Since the back-to-back wins and a second in one of the Italian rounds, he's had 4 DNFs and only 2 podium finishes in that time. While at the same time, Pecco Bagnaia has won, 4 or 5 races, finished second once, and third twice. Hence, where the swing has went towards Pecco Bagnaia for him to possibly become to win a world championship for Ducati. He'll be the first Ducati world champion since Casey Stoner, I believe, probably, which would be huge. And Alicia Spargaro is only a point ahead of Enea Bastianini for third. Jack Miller still has a small chance at third if he can have a good run, first or second on Sunday. He could possibly go out there with issues for the other two. He would have 209. Yeah, he'd have to win. If he won, then he'd have a chance at third in the championship. 11 and 11 is 22. So yeah, you need to win. But good battle there. Brad Binder is Zarco for 6th is close. Oliveira Martin is close for 9th and 10th. In the drivers, I mean, the teams, Ducati's won that championship. They're over 100 points, and Constructors was done a long time ago because Ducati has way more bikes than anybody else. And Moto 2, it's a very close battle going into the finale at Valencia. It's 9.5 points. Augusto Fernandez over Ayagura for the championship. Aaron Canet likely going to be in third. Arbolino is 10.5 points out of Celestino Vietti. Jake Dixon and Alonso Lopez are all kind of in there. 20 points separating those four. Pedro Acosta is right there. Joe Roberts is in 9th. He really would have to win to move up any further. Only 2 points out of Chantra, who won earlier this year, the second round of the championship. For Joe Roberts, he won one race as well and finished second in one earlier in the season, and then kind of went away after that for him. So similar results for Chantra as well. Cameron Beaubier in his last race in Moto 2 is in 15th, so he would need to score somehow or another, get 11 points. So that would mean if he could finish 5th with issues for some of these other riders, he could move all the way up to 12th in the championship. Sean Dillon Kelly right now is at 5.5 points in 28th. So it's still close, couple of points. He can move up a couple more spots with a decent weekend at Valencia. Moto, as out of curiosity, I don't really look at Moto 3 much, but I'll go into that anyway. Moto 3, Guevara, the champion there, and then in Moto E, had Ducati not in, would have been short-sighted. I mean, okay. Set to become Moto E supplier. Interesting. Torres crowned Moto E champion. Okay. So they don't have the results for Moto E, but then okay. Interesting. So let's get into football. I mean, the Monday Night Football right now, Josh, is not all that compelling. As it stands, it's 11-0. 11-0 Cleveland. They're in the red zone for a possible touchdown to make it 18-0. Cincinnati has not had anything this whole day. Cleveland needs this win. Oh, that's a run. You hit the pylon, and that's a touchdown for. That's a touchdown for. What's his name? Jacoby Brissett. So yeah, that's game. And right now Kenny Pickett is outscoring Joe Burrow, who has had one interception and one fumble today. So my quarterback play this week has been an abomination. Joe Mixon has 17 total yards. And yeah. So I went from a possibility of getting into the top 5 this week to now I'm pretty certain that I'm not only not going to get into the top 5 this week, but I might have. I mean, I have a little higher score than was it 1. I'm a little close. I'm less than a point away from Steve, but I'm ahead of 2 people. So I think I'm going to go from I could either finish 6th or 7th this week. I'm winning my other matchup in the Yahoo leagues that I'm in, but and then in the sleeper league we won. Uh, we were winning anyway, even with Joe Burrow being complete shit. He has .62 of a point. I'm trying to see, does that guy have anybody else playing? Oh, he has Tyler Boyd. So if Tyler Boyd is actually one of the only people who has positive yardage, 2 receptions and 25 yards. And yeah. Oh boy. What a cluster. So there's a chance it could get crazy. If Burrow actually starts doing something and he throws it to Tyler Boyd, it could become a problem for us. But we might fade the fact that Joe Burrow's having like the worst game he's had in his career. But let us talk about your Jaguars first, Josh. It's been a minute. They lost to the frickin' Denver Broncos and shitting high stepping Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett, that outstanding offense. They showed up, but it was more a case of how the defense showed up and made key plays on Trevor Lawrence to expose some of the deficiencies that the former number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft has shown so far in his career, and is something that is probably a major concern as we go forward.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence, threw 2 interceptions, one on the 1-yard line. So, go back to week 5, threw one in the red zone, 5 yards out. And then this one here, threw one on the 1-yard line, the goal line. Looking back at it, the decision to throw, wasn't the worst one. It was just a poor throw, and he didn't place it where he needed to place it. But my thing is why even run on the 1 yard, or why even pass like that? They went 5 wide on a QB sprint action to the right, and why even throw that type of pass or call that type of play when you can just run it in? You have Travis Etienne, who's had like 6.5 yards per carry in the NFL this season. So why why pass in that situation? Just hand the ball off on the 1 and punch it in, instead of this passing shit. I wouldn't even hand it, or I wouldn't even call it passing play the rest of the season. I would just go back to 1950 and hand it off every play, and punish the other team's will to even live. That's how I would play. But some of he also took a sack that took him out of field goal range, I think, before halftime, and then the game-ending interception that happened. Uh, just can't make that type of throw. But just made a poor decision there. Well, I don't know if it was a poor decision because I haven't seen the tape yet, but you know, threw it to a guy that was on a cast, and threw it to Kirk, straight to Kirk, which I think maybe it looked like is he didn't go through all of his progressions, but I don't know, man. He has the arm talent, I think, but he just doesn't have all the decision making, and just hasn't all come together yet, and that's why. He might eventually win one of these games like this. Maybe they get him a number 1 receiver in a trade this week or next year. But I just just don't know if he has that mentality to go out and win games. And I feel like number one picks should be able to go out and win. You know, go out and win games, and put him in game-winning situations, and he just hasn't quite put it all together like that. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, there's also the defense that allowed Russell Wilson to go down the field. Josh Allen, defensive end, lost contained. And he's another one, first overall pick, or no, well, pick in the first round, 7th overall, but he hasn't been able to generate the pressure. I mean, he has 16 pressures on the season, I think, and 3 sacks, but he's just hasn't been able to be an impact player in these type of games. And I mean, I would trade Josh Allen right now. Like, I don't think he's worth the contract extension. Um, I don't care if he's a quote unquote good player. He just doesn't make enough plays. And I mean, I think they probably what they probably thinking is put him on him and Trayvon Walker, but as the guys on the outside to edge rush. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, he hasn't really performed that well, and I would trade him and see if we can get a couple of first round picks in return, and or a second round pick, and try to get a wide receiver out of that deal somehow. I mean, offense is what scores games. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't even field. I mean, sometimes I don't even think you should just not even field the defense and let the other team have a free score so you can have the ball back. Just do that. So I don't know, but Travis Etienne took over the starting role officially this week, and he had 155 yards. So good job, and I think one touchdown. So yeah, he was the player of the game on offense, and I guess they proved that he could actually be the guy. So I mean, at least this week. So we'll see. But again, 1 yard line instead of going 5 wide and throwing a pick. I don't know why you just don't go heavy, and why why not go heavy and hand it off to the running back to punch it in, which they did later in the game. Why did they do that in the first half? So yeah, that's how it is this week, and we'll continue to move on. And they play the Raiders, and the Raiders have a chance to get right after going 24-0 this week against the Saints. So yeah, the Broncos got right against the Jaguars, and we'll see if the Raiders can get right. So that's what it is. I don't know. They should try to trade for a wide receiver, but I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. So Chase Claypool, Elijah Moore, DJ Moore, something like that, or one of those guys. At least somebody that can at least get open on the outside, because that's what they're lacking on offense right now. And I guess it would help Trevor, and could see if they could actually use more of his arm talent. Of course, he hasn't thrown a pass longer than 30 yards in the air since like 3 weeks or whatever, since week 5. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if he can do it. But fantasy wise, managed to score what would have been a winning score despite 2 of my players only scoring a handful of points. First of all, Darren Waller out of the game, so I should have started Evan Ingram, but I faded him for some reason, and then I picked up another tight end for the Saints who had done well in other games, but just the matchup, I guess, didn't play out, and I thought with the Raiders being not good covering tight ends, it would work out, but it didn't. So there's that. And then Derek Carr didn't do anything against the Saints. So I don't know. Maybe he'll do good against Jacksonville. So I'll keep him in the lineup. But he didn't do good either. So if I started, I guess if you started Evan Ingram at wide receiver, at tight end, and then put in Rondale Moore at the super flex, I probably would have won that. But normally you don't think to put the other non QB guy in the super flex unless maybe one of your players is injured and you don't want to use a waiver thing, or they're on a bye week or something like that. But would have been a game winning score, scoring 228 points. But Hurts season goes out and scores 248 with DeAndre Hopkins and AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts. So that's pretty tough to beat, and it was always going to be an uphill battle from there. So we'll see. We'll see next week. Try to improve. We're down to 500, which I don't think I've ever had that happen in this league before. So I don't know. Maybe if I pay my dues, which I need to do, maybe I'll have a winning record next week. So we'll try that. So I'll remember to do that after this show, and we'll go from there. But yeah, gonna have to figure out some things this week on the fantasy front and try to improve for next week. So try to get back into this because gotta have a good standing for the fantasy playoffs, and make it into the final round. Try to be in the championship round. So hopefully can try to do that this season. And certainly it's been pretty tough. Unless you're Professor J or the guy that has Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown, so or Wilson. So it's pretty
Yeah.
tight mid pack.
Yeah, well, me looking at 4 consecutive losses right in the face, it's pretty bad. Trying to go and bring this up here, so the league stats, I've dropped 4 games in a row. I was 3-1, and now I'm going to fall all the way back to 8th, only a game ahead of the bottom 2 teams. Vic had started, I think, 0-6, and now he's 1-2, or he was like 1-6 or 1-5 or whatever. It's a close battle between him and Luke, so it could actually change. He could actually, if Vic wins, he could actually go to 3-5 and tie me in record, and then Luke would drop. But I've lost 4 games in a row. My day was basically over. He had Lamar Jackson. That's another touchdown for Cleveland. Or there's a flag maybe, but Lamar Jackson had a good game. McCaffrey went nuts, which I'll speak about in a minute. DJ Moore, who might be traded from Carolina in their fire sale, had a great game. I picked Atlanta in my survival pool, and they somehow or another eked it out over Carolina. DJ Moore got a unsportsmanlike conduct penalty after scoring a big touchdown from what do you call? Why am I forgetting his quarterback's name? PJ Walker. Yeah, PJ Walker took his helmet off. What's worse is Joe didn't even have one of his players. He got 0 points from one of his spots. So I've had my full team, and essentially he had 4 players beat me. Trevor Lawrence was terrible. And Joe Burrow is somehow or another coming through to be even worse than him. Only has 103 yards. He has an interception and a fumble lost. So my quarterbacks have combined for 14 or 15.1 points. And his quarterbacks scored, 46 and 30. So 77. So, I don't know. At one point, Daniil Hunter was nowhere to be found, and he showed up late. DK Metcalf, I left on this is what's crazy. Kenny Pickett was my best quarterback this week. That's how pathetic my quarterback
How's
play
it even
was.
possible?
That's how bad my quarterback play was. Kenny Pickett in a blowout, lost a fumble, threw an interception. He actually had a solo tackle, so I gained point. I think that's why. The solo tackle is 2 points. Okay. Yeah, so he got 2 points on that. They don't show the full breakdown. I don't know why. Oh, that's why, because I didn't put him in the lineup. That's why. So the solo tackle and the rushing yards, um, the point whatever, the PP or whatever points per rush and all that. That is sad. That'll do it. Niners get a huge win in their second home in LA. Destroy the Rams. Kind of wish. Was that another touchdown? No, that was the same. That was the touchdown we just saw. So, um, a huge win going into their bye week. Christian McCaffrey becoming only the third player in the modern era to throw, catch, and run for a touchdown. And first one since LaDainian Tomlinson. It looks like Jimmy Garoppolo has a safety blanket, which might mean that Jimmy Garoppolo might be able to play decently enough for the next, I don't know how many months, whatever, next 4 months, 3.5 months. And if he does that, the Niners might be able to somehow or another get to Arizona for the Super Bowl. They do have to play Arizona twice, the Cardinals. They have to play the Cardinals the final week of the season. Ayuk had a good game. GK had a good game. Defense was all right. Hafunga's aggressiveness is starting to go against him because he misses a lot of tackles. I think that's something he's gonna have to work on. Fundamentally, I mean, he hits hard and he can make big plays, but you also have to be fundamentally sound. The secondary is beat up. Everybody on the defense, there's a lot of injuries. So it's something the Niners need to have going and fixed in time for the second half of this season. They're going to have a couple of primetime games coming off of their bye. Be playing the LA Chargers, and they'll be playing Arizona on the road. I think that's the Mexico game, actually. So they'll be on the road on Monday Night Football in Mexico for that one, and then they'll play Arizona at home, which has a great chance to be on the flex game 2, whatever the hell it would be. But I'm looking way further out than that. Yeah, now I'm up to 190 points. So what is that? I'm still gonna end up being sixth because there's 5 teams that have over 200 points. So yeah, I would need Joe Burrow's actually running for yards. Look at that. Oh man, he's woke up. I mean, somebody has to start talking about the fact that his coach, whatever the fuck his coach's name is he's pretty shitty. Because the reality is, if you're going to tell me that their whole entire offense is run through Jamar Chase, you're telling me it's the same crap as Aaron has now that he doesn't have Devontae Adams. Really, you're going to tell me it's the same thing as you're telling me Buffalo can't figure out how to throw the ball to anybody other than Stephon Diggs when he has those other wide receivers with Josh Allen. I mean, I know the offense is driven through that and all that. I don't understand how this league has gotten to the point where you can only throw to one person. Kansas City doesn't. Kansas City that throws to fucking Kermit the Frog throws to anybody and everybody. Gets people from out the fucking stands and he throws touchdowns to them. McCole Hardman went and got 3 touchdowns against the 49ers. The guy's been non-existent the rest of the year. They picked up a malcontent from the Giants. That was a first-round draft pick, Kadarius Toney. And he's going to end up being good. Conveniently, probably. Whatever. Niners, we'll see what happens. They'll be on bye this week. The slate this week is not great, but we'll see what happens. There's some good teams on bye, but hopefully next week in fantasy I'm winning in 1, possibly in 2, definitely in 1, probably in 2, losing in 1. I'm going against Luke in fantasy next week. Josh is going against Manny, who's been a tough team all year based on his performance and the dual record. He would actually be in the playoffs because of his dual record situation as of last week. I updated a couple of people. Currently, the dual record leader is Jeff with 13-3. Manny's at 9-7. Wilson, I think I feel pretty comfortable in saying Wilson's gonna finish with 2-0. Yeah, he's gonna be fine because Steve needs T. Higgins to go off, and I have a hard time believing that's gonna happen. It's funny. Myles Garrett is actually not had a bad game, but nothing crazy. One solo tackle, one sack, one pass deflection, and tackle. That's a tackle for loss. While Luke has Tyler Boyd. I need Joe Burrow to throw a touchdown. That would be nice. That would be to get him 10 points. It would just be nice if he could actually go and get his point total to where they're running out of time. Oh, they have 3 seconds. Okay, so they could. I mean, I don't think they're going to score a touchdown on this play, but is that to a white guy? Is that to the tight end?
Oh, yeah. Don't they have a white guy as the tight end this week? I forgot.
Well, yeah, they have Hayden Hurst, but
Yeah.
there's another white guy, random white guy. Yeah, so it wasn't any of those other people. They're in the red zone now. He has 5.4 points because now he has 150 pass yards. So yeah, 20 yards a point there, but he's lost 4 points with the interception and the fumble. So
yeah, you talked about Joe having 0 points, and yet I remember when I played him in week 5, he also had 0 points at the cornerback position. And, his team nickname is Kyler's Film Club, obvious nod to Kyler not studying. And clearly he's not paying attention because he's still somehow winning. But, he's got left some points there clearly on the board with a couple of goose eggs at the cornerback position.
When you're a father of 2 and busy with all that, I guess he's able to get away with that, and he has a good enough team to fade that.
Yeah.
I try to fill a full team, and I have quarterbacks that look like they play at one. They couldn't even beat Jackson State. So whatever. It is, I guess, as they always say, it is what it is. He'll have to show up this week because he has to play Wilson. And then, I mean, Professor J plays Vic, so we'll see if he actually does anything. You have to play Manny. That's a tough out. I mean, right now the league would have 3 teams at 6-2 going into next week. It would be 3 teams at 6-2 if everything holds. Joe would be 4th at 5-3. You'd be in 5th at 4-4. And then there are 3 teams at 3-5. Manny would be in with the most points. He is 9 points ahead of Steve, and I'm 20. What is it? Nearly 30 at 28 points or 26 points, 27 points behind him in 8th. So it's a close battle, and essentially based on dual record, I think he would be ahead anyway. The dual record plays against you. You've had a rough scoring season so far, but I think you'd be able to fade it because of your record. I think it's really about tiebreakers if anything happens in that. But the top 4 kind of is what it is. Manny would get in with that. Me and Steve are tied, and then you're right there with us essentially in that spot. So I think we'd have to go and look at that accordingly. Let's get into the previews for all three NASCAR series here. The Niners made their trade for Christian McCaffrey. They ain't trading anything else unless they find some miracle picks or something that they have. Let's start with trucks. They haven't raced since they haven't raced since Homestead. They'll be running the Lucas Oil 150. It'll be 10:15 Eastern time. So that's interesting starting time. They don't have enough trucks to have a full field, so there's going to be some field fillers in there. Looks like a pick, or no, it was a touchdown to Tyler Boyd. Lovely. So I've gotten to 202 points. So I do have a chance to actually get in the fifth. So there actually is a chance. I am 2.1 points away from getting in a fifth for this week. And splitting. Oh, McPherson misses the PAT. Lovely. That is pretty god awful. What is it called? Yeah, Luke with that touchdown probably has won his matchup, and so he'd get ahead of Steve. Yeah, so Professor J's fucked. Professor J's got Nick Chubb. I guess Professor J is going to be last no matter what, but I guess they're going to give it to Nick Chubb. They're going to take the air out of the game. There, who did I have? I have T. Higgins, of course. I never had the right Cincinnati wide receivers. Fucking joke. But all right, final four in the truck series is Ty Majeski, Zane Smith, Chandler Smith, Ben Rhodes. Ty Majeski's won 2 of the last 3 races. Chandler Smith won back in the summer at Richmond, and he won one race in this playoff so far. Zane Smith has not won since May at Kansas. When it comes to the what's it called? Ben Rhodes. Ben Rhodes has Chandler Smith, Corey. Ben Rhodes won in the dirt on the Bristol dirt. So that was in April. And Zane Smith last time he won was at Kansas. You have going through some of these people, blah blah blah. Kligerman, Chandler Smith was at Pocono. He won at Richmond. That was his last win of the last win he had, and that was back in August because of how stupid the truck series schedule is. So based on recency bias, Ty Majeski is in good shape. Based on the full championship, the Smiths have been probably the 2 best drivers in this championship. And then, of course, Ben Rhodes last year is the defending series champion. And, that gives him an opportunity, trying to go out there with the results and having that veteran experience to go out and possibly repeat, joining his teammate Matt Crafton as a repeat champion of the Truck Series. But Josh, I'll start with you. Who do you think amongst those 4 is the most likely to pick up this championship on Friday night? And then I guess secondarily, do you think it'll be with a win? If not, who do you look at to win, and who's a wild card for you in a short field at Phoenix this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough tough four here to pick from, but I'm gonna go with Chandler Smith. I feel like they have the resources behind him, and he's been strong as of late. He's been better than the other Smith, Zane Smith, um, for most of this season. I feel like, I think Chandler Smith, he's uh, has what it takes to get it done in the championship race. As far as the other guys, Ben Rhodes hasn't really been that strong since the beginning of the season. Granted, he did win this race kind of out of nowhere after last year, kind of went away after the first couple of races, and he came out of nowhere to win the championship last year, but I just don't see him sustaining that again this year. I think Ty Majeski, is formidable of a driver as he's become, I just don't think he is going to be able to pull it off this weekend. So I'm going to go with Chandler Smith. I think he's got the best car, the best team out of the top four remaining in the championship, and I think he can go out and win this race here at Phoenix. If not win, then he'll be the best among those four. I think wild card pick this weekend for the trucks. The best of the rest. Let's look at Carson Hocevar. I mean, he's had a chance to win races this year and plenty of opportunities, and he's a guy that we talked about it offline, kind of like Ross Chastain, guy that's willing to send it in there, and if it means winning a race, other people's championship being damned, he might try to do that, but we'll have to see if he's able to make that attempt. But I think he has a good opportunity if he's in the right position at the end of the race to make something happen. But it's going to be an interesting race for sure. This is the shorter race, but a lot of things can happen. We've seen it in the past. Obviously, last year John Hunter Nemechek had problems happening throughout the final race. We thought he was going to be the favorite going into this, but ended up not being the champion. Ben Rhodes kind of came out of nowhere to win it. So even 150 miles, there's still a lot that can happen here. The final race for the trucks.
My fault there. I was going and putting adjustments on the picks page. I made the picks on the Xfinity. You made the pick. You called the whole entire podium. There, we both called the people that would make the final four. Of course, we didn't know what Ross Chastain was going to do to get to the final four, but he did it. For me, I mean, it was a great pick by you, because Chandler Smith won this race last year. It was one of his 2 wins he had last year in the playoff itself. And, Sheldon, what is it? Zane Smith he has finished second twice in his last 2 years. He's finished second in this championship. He finished 2 points behind Ben Rhodes, because Ben Rhodes finished third behind Friesen and Chandler Smith, and Zane Smith finished behind those guys, and also Sheldon Creed, who should have been in the final four, but whatever. John Hunter Nemechek really should have been the champion, but he spit the bit in the playoffs. 3 finishes outside of the top 20, 3 top 5s, 1 good enough. Ben Rhodes also had a outside the top 30 finish, and no wins, but that's something. For me, in regards to this race for the pick here, Crafton won back-to-back in 13 and 14. Rhodes trying to do that. Ron Hornaday, for all the championships he won, he never won back-to-back. He won them off each other, like other years, split them with Sprague back in the day, and then he bookended Johnny Benson 07 and 09. Should have won a 5th championship, but But he got wrecked by Kyle Busch. And he got suspended. But Kyle Busch got suspended, but Keebler Gibbs does it, and it doesn't matter. For me, of the final four, I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna say Zane Smith gets the victory and gets his championship finally. He's essentially the only person that Ford has in their driver development program now. And that's another touchdown for Nick Chubb. So I don't know who has Nick Chubb, but they're having a great day today. I have to bring it up. I'm trying to see who has Nick Chubb. Professor J has Nick Chubb, but he's still. Oh, so he actually has a chance if they're able if they're able to get the ball back. He might be able to pass Vic to not finish last this week, but that depends on if Cincinnati can score more points. But okay, yeah, I'm gonna pick Zane Smith, the only person that Ford has in their driver development program that has any chance, really. My wild card pick for this race. My wild card pick for this race. I mean, it's not really that wild, honestly. If I go with either of these people, I can't. I'm not going to go. You know what? No, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go with Corey Heim. Corey Heim, he's won twice this year, and he's going to be a full-time driver next year for Triad or Tripod or whatever the fuck David Gilliland Racing is called. Gilliland, and then what the hell are the Gilliland Gray Racing, Tripod Garage or whatever, which is probably the nickname for Lexington Steel back in the day. I think he's gonna be. He has a chance. He has a really good chance to win in Kyle Busch Motorsports' last race as a Toyota outfit there at Phoenix. Xfinity Series at Phoenix. What do you call? They don't have a sponsor for it. Of course, there'll be a 200 lap race. One driver will fail to make the show, and excuse me. Of course, we have 3 junior motorsports guys versus Keebler Gibbs. I'll go first. My bias and want is Josh Berry to win this race and win the championship. The reality is Noah Gragson is going to go and win his 9th race of 2022 and become an Xfinity Series champion. And he's going to live up to his Tim Richmond self and have unprotected sex with lots of women and probably do some drugs and make his new team proud, make his new car owner, Spencer Gallagher, proud with his actions there. So picking Gragson to win this race. My wild card choice, I mean, if John Hunter was in this race, I would definitely pick him, but he isn't. He's pretty good in these cars. My wild card pick for this race is, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to go there. 2 people I don't like and I've never liked. I'm going to go and pick Bruckshot Jones. He's won at this racetrack before. It's a good Joe Gibbs racing track.
That's the revenge pick.
Yeah, and I mean, if he was to win, and possibly prevent Keebler Gibbs from winning the championship. It would be pretty good. He's laid over for, but he is also laid over for Noah Gragson earlier in this playoff. So we'll see what happens. Those are my choices, Josh. How about you for the Xfinity Series?
Well, for me, for the Xfinity Series, yeah, I'm gonna go with Josh Berry winning the championship this weekend. Yeah, I think he has a good shot at it. Yeah, I know Noah Gragson had won in the spring here at at Phoenix, and set the car on fire, set the track on fire. But I think Josh Berry's got to have a good piece this weekend to be able to do the job. I think he's been a solid driver this season. Um, you know, it's kind of the sentimental favorite, I feel like. And I think he has a good opportunity. Based on how he's run at some of these short tracks this year, and he's got kind of that mentality. Last year you saw Hamrick use the bumper to get to the door of Austin Cindric to win the title, and I think he's got the same mentality. He's not gonna wreck you completely like Ty Gibbs did this past weekend to Brandon Jones, but I'm of the mentality that he's gonna be able to use the bumper if he needs to. He's that kind of short track racer that you want to see in these late race situations. Especially at Phoenix. But wild card pick here for Xfinity. Um, it's hard to say, but I'm gonna go with. I mean, it's not really a wild card, but considering that outside of the final four, you're not really paying attention to others. But I'm gonna go with AJ Allmendinger as a wild card. See it. You get a little bit wider range of wild card picks now. Once you have the top four left, but he's still pretty strong, and I could see him potentially affecting the championship wherever he's running. He may have a strategy call to try and win the race. Last opportunity as a full-time Xfinity driver to go out and win on the season, and maybe they come to a late race caution, he decides to stay out, or he takes two tires or something to try to get to the lead. So I could totally see that happening. Last year he came up short in his bid to win the title. So he's going to move back up into Cup next year with colleagues. So let's see if he can end his full-time Xfinity career with chance to go out and win.
Yes, T. Higgins gets a touchdown from what you called why am I forgetting his name? Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow actually has a pedestrian score now. They're still going to lose for sure, but 200 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. Joe Mixon still doesn't have. I mean, he only has 45 total yards, but he has 1.6 on the rushing, 7.5 on the receptions, because 1.25 points per reception, 18 receiving yards, 27 rush yards. So it's been quite a struggle and a drudge for him. For me, right now, the irony is that T. Higgins with that touchdown has given Steve a backdoor chance if they can get the ball back and he can get a couple more receptions to possibly beat Wilson. I've already passed him, so now I'm going to finish 5th this week. I'm not going to get any further without a miracle, but Wilson's going to be a lucky loser as well. Might lose altogether. Well, actually, yeah, he's going to be he'd win and all that. So that's something. Cincinnati wasn't around for most of this game, and then all of a sudden, at the second part of the second half, they decided to show up. What a joke!
Man, the way you're talking about this game with the scoring, it's like I thought it was a close game. I don't even have it on right now.
Yeah,
But
it's now 32 to 13,
13 to
but
32. So,
yeah.
but I guess in fantasy, scoring matters, and still got 6 minutes left in this game. So, a little bit of late game volatility that could affect the fantasy standings this week.
Yeah, now even though I'm still going to fall to 8th and lose 4 games in a row, I'm only 11 points, 0.25 points behind uh, Steve, who in turn could possibly still win and then switch this up to where he'd be 4-4. Wilson would drop to 5-3 and be tied with Joe. And then that would give what do you call Jeff the lead outright. So there is still some intrigue in this game. I'm going to move up to I'm going to be 3-5 in my other league here. So my sleeper league's the only league where I'm over 500. But whatever, we'll see what happens with that. Cup Series doesn't have a sponsor for their finale. 312 laps on Sunday afternoon. They'll be running there at Phoenix. The final 5 are, of course, Joey Logano, Christopher Bell, William Clyde Elliott II, and Ross Chastain, with Kyle Larson, the defending series champion, in the owners' points battle for this next race, knocking his teammate William Clyde Elliott II out because he didn't score enough points. So in this race, Josh, you have 5. In a sense, you have 5 choices, which is different than it's ever been before in the Cup Series, which I think could play a bit of a role. I mean, I think they do want to see Hendrick get the dual championship, which is entirely possible. But what do you think will be the case in your pick for this weekend's race at Phoenix?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, there's a chance for a split title here because Kyle Larson won at Homestead and put himself into the conversation on the ownership side for that championship, and it's actually kind of interesting because the way its standings are laid out currently for the owner's title, um, you have Kyle Larson, then the number 5 as the um in the owner's points, and then you also have Chase Elliott in the 9 in the driver's points standings right now, and it's an interesting way to end this season where you have this split title, and it's entirely possible that we see this play out where you have Hendrick number 5 or the Hendrick number 9 win. And in one sense, the Hendrick number 5, if he wins, then he wins the owner's title, but he doesn't win the drivers' championship. So they still, I mean, obviously last year they won both, but this year a little bit different because of the situation with Kurt Busch, with his concussion, and so it's entirely possible that we see that. And then if the 9 wins, he doesn't actually win the owners' championship. So that's still up for grabs, depending on where the 5 finishes. And then of course, if any of the other 3, with the Penske 22, Joey Logano and Chris Bell in the 20, and Ross Chastain in the number 1, if any of those guys win the title, win the race, and win the title, then they also win the owners' championship, and then that's the scenario where Hendrick doesn't win the title, of course, the owner's title, of course, unless Chase Elliott wins, which that could be possible. So it's a very interesting scenario to play out, and normally this year we only focus on the 4 drivers, coverage wise. They're only going to focus on the 4, in the past, but now you have a 5th guy in there, so they're probably going to have to give a lot of focus onto Kyle Larson, because he's certainly somebody that has won this race, obviously, last year, and could come out and win, this race and take home the owner's title. But with all that said, it's an interesting strategy that could play out. I'm gonna go with the the watermelon man, the Florida man, to win this title and win the race. Ross Chastain go out and win here at Phoenix. I think he's gonna ride the wall from Martinsville all the way to Phoenix and take home the title. He's had a really interesting season. Part of this playoff for him was up and down, but he managed to get his way into literally ride the wall into the title. But if you look at what he's done this season, he's had a lot of opportunities throughout the year to win races and score top 5 finishes. Finished second here back in Phoenix, all the way back in March, and we're back here at Phoenix here in November, and possibility that he could go out and win this title. So, and honestly, I actually forgot that he even finished in second at the beginning of the year. So could happen. Maybe
Yeah, I
he actually
remembered him
wins.
and him and Reddick were up there with Briscoe.
Yeah, so yeah, that's entirely possible. And so that leaves with the wild card pick. I'm gonna go with Martin Truex Jr. as the wild card here. Last year had a chance to go and win, against Kyle Larson, and didn't make it happen. But the 19, he's been hit or miss. But at the same time, Truex, he's a reliable driver, certainly somebody that can make something happen. And I don't know if I don't think he'd be the guy to go out and affect the race where he doesn't where he affects the title, but certainly he's a strong car and he could be up there in the top 5 at the end of the day at Phoenix. He's a really good driver at this track, and when it counts, he knows how to get it done when things are on the line.
Those are both good picks. If he were to win somehow, if they allow that to happen, he'd be a 20th different winner this year.
Yeah.
For me, I'm going down a similar path that way. I'm saying that Kyle Larson is going to win on Sunday, which means he would win the owners championship for Hendrick Motorsports. In terms of the drivers championship, I should put that in my picks then. And then let me go and edit that, actually. YRB wildcard is my wildcard. It will be YRB. If he were to win, he'd be the 20th different winner this season. And Christopher Bell would be my champion, overall drivers champion, with whatever you would do. So I'm saying Larson to win. So all guys that have some connection to the sprints in some way, shape, or form. Larson repeats at Phoenix in this race, gets the owner's championship for Hendrick. Gibbs gets the driver's championship for Christopher Bell, with Kyle Busch leaving, and Keebler moving up. And then YRB, if it were on neither of those, YRB was the dominant driver in this race, started on pole, won one stage, led the most laps. But in the end, Chase Briscoe led a good part of the second half of that race. Briscoe was up there early from essentially lap 230 till the end was him. So was it 82 laps, last 82 laps. Briscoe led 81 of the last 82 laps to win his first career race there. I mean, obviously, I'd like for him to go and win, to walk off and end this season on a high note. But we'll see what happens there at Phoenix. NASCAR has not been known for allowing outsiders from the championship to be in that spot. So we'll see about that. So those are our picks for the races at Phoenix. We will go over all of that next week in episode 143 of the Grip Strip podcast. But Josh, before we go, let's get into the sim side of things. what's going on in iRacing and some of the other games that are going on, like F1 and things that you're going to be doing here in upcoming weeks now that we're getting into the racing off season soon enough. You're on mute.
Yep, sorry about that, on mute, but
Sorry.
yeah, no, couple of races left here in Formula One race left here in NASCAR, but the sim racing still goes on, and I mean, I did a little bit of Martinsville last night, and I actually tried the truck series, and because that was the time that was available for me to try and run, and the truck series, I tried to do the wall ride thing that Ross Chastain did, and it was a little bit harder to do in the truck. I feel like you have to hit it at the right angle, and you got to be going fast enough. And feel like in the Cup car it works out the way it's set up. And I don't know. Didn't try it in the Xfinity car, but I imagine if you're hitting it at the wall at the right angle, you keep going. I think I was maybe a little bit off the wall in going into turn three, trying to I did it in practice. I didn't do it in a race session just to test it out and see if it would happen. But um, yeah, I mean, Martinsville, one of my favorite tracks on iRacing, and and sim, gaming in general, going back to the PlayStation days. And yeah, I don't really remember if I did a move like Ross Chastain in the games before like that. I probably did something, where you just, floor it and hope for, you come out on the other side like that, but I don't know if I did anything quite like what he did in the games. I mean, I probably did. I just don't remember it. It was all the way back when you're, 6 or 7 years old playing on the PS2. Uh, on NASCAR Thunder 2003 and 2004, something like that. I mean, not on iRacing because you know you got to turn off the damage and everything, and maybe it might work in iRacing, but it's a very unique situation to do it in, and we talked about it before, and it works. It works because at Martinsville and maybe other tracks because of the physics and the way the game is set up, but it worked in real life because Martinsville has a short radius, and uh, I think that's what really helped him there to keep the acceleration in the corner compared to everybody else. But yeah, I mean, I think try to get into F1 again here in the off season. Um, I'm gonna try to figure something out with that, and just play a little bit for fun on there, and also just run whatever NASCAR and IndyCar on iRacing throughout the off season, and we'll have fun throughout the winter. I think the iRacing Super Speedway is coming back in a couple of weeks on NASCAR and iRacing, and throughout various weeks. So might try that again coming up, and we'll see if can make some good moves on there, going flat out. At the iRacing Super Speedway. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting off season. I plan on upgrading my equipment finally for iRacing. I'm look into upgrading the pedals first. So because I think people have recommended upgrading the pedals first because you'll gain the most time that way. Steering, definitely, force feedback. You have that feeling, but with braking and stuff, you get more consistent braking with some of the newer equipment, and compared to the old 10-year equipment that I've had for years now. So yeah, I gotta do that and try to get better on the road racing side, and also some of the short track stuff on the on the oval end. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it for the sim racing segment. Of course, this week on iRacing, they'll be doing the Phoenix Raceway stuff, mimicking the real life NASCAR event schedule. So I'll probably try some of that. Um, with the NASCAR side. Yeah, I think with the way that it's coming out. Try to run Phoenix. IndyCar. I think IndyCar this week for the fixed series is at Charlotte, so that might be interesting. The NASCAR Legends Series, the Throwback Series, is at Darlington this week, so that might be interesting. Road course racing wise, Dallara F3 at Long Beach, that might be interesting. Okayama Circuit for the Mazda MX-5, always a good track. Yeah, Spa in the Indy Pro series, that might be interesting as well. So there's always a lot of good opportunities here on iRacing to run. So yeah, that's it for sim racing. Of course, find me on sim racing, doing all my videos at Twitch TV/usailor2, and you can follow me, see all the takes and everything at JP Huffline on Twitter. And then, of course, you can follow our Gripstrip podcast page on YouTube. Subscribe, like, subscribe, and watch our page on YouTube, Gripstrip podcast. There, all our videos are up there, so you can go and watch our stuff and pay attention to our videos and listen to it off of YouTube if you want. Besides other streaming platforms that we're on, audio wise, so go on there. So, yeah, that's it for me this week. Of course, my birthday is on Friday, so good stuff there. Chapter
Happy
20.
early birthday, sir.
Yeah, chapter 27. So we'll begin on Friday, and should be interesting. Gonna try to. I mean, I was at home this past weekend for my dad's birthday, and now it's my birthday this weekend, so be spending some time with family and friends, I guess. Wanted to try to go to the Jaguars game on Sunday against the Raiders, but I don't know yet if I want to now. Maybe I will just for fun. We'll see. I know one of my other friends is going, so maybe I might just go just to hang out or whatever. So, maybe I'll do that, but I don't know yet. I haven't decided. If not, might go at the end of the month in November with the Raiders are playing the Thanksgiving weekend on the Sunday of the Thanksgiving weekend in Jacksonville. So that's the other game I had in mind to go to. So we'll see. But yeah, should be a good week, of course, and be celebrating my birthday this weekend. So glad to be doing that, and glad to have a birthday to celebrate, and hopefully be blessed with many more, and be able to enjoy the next year of my life. So yeah, that's it for me this week.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Happy early birthday to you, brother. 27. I mean, I can remember. That's, what is it? Now I'm going up all in age now. 27. Like 28 was, it was 2012. Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, those are the days when I had less pressure, and I was going to school, and things seemed to be a lot easier. No, I'm trying to sign, like, I don't know what this is, probably, this is the Elon doing that, but in terms of myself, you can find me at Philip G. Matthew on Twitter. You can find us at Gripstrip Pod. NTT Data, as we wave the checkered flag on. So NTT Data now is leaving the. So they're going over. So that's what it is. So NTT Data is leaving the 10 team at Chip Ganassi, and they're going over to McLaren, which is essentially where that's where Alex Palou is supposed to be. That's interesting. Michael J. Fox is going to be on Broadway. That's something. You can find me at Philip G. Matthew. You can find us at Gripster Pod on Twitter. We're anywhere you can listen to podcasts. You can find us, Philip G. Matthew. Our YouTube page is at Gripster Podcast, that Josh handles. And we'll be back for episode 143 of the GSP, going over everything that happened at Phoenix. We will review MotoGP's and Moto2 finale at Valencia, preview the Bahrain 8 hours, the finale of the World Endurance Championship for this year. Indonesia will host Mandalika Circuit will host World Superbikes. Next to last race of their championship, Rally Japan for the WRC. We will talk about Week 9 NFL and preview and make picks for the Brazilian Grand Prix Formula One, which will also have a sprint race. Last sprint race of this year. They're going to have 6 of them next year. Oh, joy. And then we'll get into all of that. So thanks as always for listening and supporting us. Give us a like, subscribe, let your friends know about the show. If you're interested and want to contribute in any way, let us know. But obviously, Josh, as always, thanks for being my sidekick and giving great takes. And I'm looking forward to seeing how your birthday goes. And if you get wasted, probably won't. You're way more responsible than I am. But even if you do go to the Jacksonville game and get wasted, probably you would need to watch that offense outside of Travis Etienne. But hey, you only live once, so go and live it out the right way. Cleveland has won the game over Cincinnati, so game is over. Trying to get a refresh here just before we end here on the Gripster podcast. We'll be back next week for episode 143, as I said, of the Gripster podcast. Thanks as always for listening and supporting. Be good to one another. Take care of one another. Be kind in this day and age of cluster, the effed up stuff that people are doing. Take care. God bless, and goodbye.
Happy Halloween.
Nice.
Yeah.